have higher survival intelligence than the human mind can even comprehend.
Hmm.
You would have to have some sort of huge survival brain capacity to survive these many generations.
Yeah.
You would have to.
Welcome to the Wilderness Wavelength podcast.
Welcome to it. This is another episode of the Wilderness Wavelength podcast. Happy to have you along with us today. My name is George, and excited for this episode tonight. Cameron, welcome to the show, Cameron.
Thank you very much, George. Thanks for having me.
Cameron, I found out about you. So we were on like our anniversary trip down in Sundre, and there was like a poster on some bulletin board, and it just said like wanted Sasquatch sightings. And I took a picture of it. I'm like, wow, like this is, I wonder what's going on here and what's happening. And so it had your name, and it actually has like, it has your phone number on there too. You want us to give out your phone number on the
Yeah,
podcast?
yeah. That's so the reason why I do the phone number thing. So I don't know how, like, have you been into Sasquatch before for a while? Have you ever
I got some
off and
buddies
on?
that were kind
Okay.
of like, they wanted to believe, and I like to keep my mind open. Like I'm not closing any doors, but yeah.
Right. Right. So the reason I do the phone number, so there's a researcher that is, I would say, the top researcher, I would say, in Canada, if not the world right now. His name's Thomas Steenberg. And he used to be based out of Alberta, actually, before he moved to British Columbia in the early 2000s. He was like the one and only big Alberta researcher. And how he got started was basically doing the same thing that I'm doing, putting up ad posters all over the place, all over the province, putting in newspaper ads in Calgary. And
Wow.
back then, there was no, when he started in the late 70s, early 80s, there was no, I believe he originally started researching in 1978, somewhere in there, 76, 78 in there. And of course, there was no internet or anything back then. There was just, phone numbers.
Yeah.
So what he would do is put, and I actually I kind of copied or stole his idea of how he did his ads, and how he did it was wanted Sasquatch sightings.
Yeah.
So I used his
It's
formula.
it's
And
catchy.
yeah, and for him back in the day, because there was no internet or no social media, he said he put his phone number out there in an ad in the newspaper in Calgary, and the phone just would not stop ringing
Wow.
day and night. Now, unfortunately, I haven't had that much success, and I think I think we should get into that a little later in the show. More of my
Yeah.
recent theories and stuff like that compared to my older ones. But no, give it out. I
Cameron's phone number 780-868-8182. You want people to call you, message you if they've seen Sasquatch or stories about like what? I'm just curious, like what kind of phone calls are you looking for? What?
legitimate sightings. I mean, of course, with my number being out there in the world, of
Yeah,
course, we get the prank
I
calls and
was
this.
wondering. Yeah,
But actually, it's kind of funny. My buddy, my research friend, seems to get more of those than I do.
yeah,
I've had a couple, but it's just harmless, whatever. I'm pretty good at telling between if someone's legit or not.
yeah.
When you've been doing this for almost 30 years.
Yeah. How long have you been doing it for, and what got you into it?
Okay, so what got me into it, I was 7 years old. I just turned seven. I'm now 34.
Yeah.
And my dad, my mom, and I were sitting around the kitchen table, and I don't know how we even got on this topic. I think we got on this topic because my dad was talking about how he used to live in BC or whatever before moving into Alberta. And again, I have no idea how we even got on that train, but eventually he brought up the name Sasquatch or Bigfoot. And I was like, well, what's that? And he said, it's this huge, hairy, man like creature that lives in British Columbia.
Yeah.
And then it was like a dog whistle. It just perked me up, grabbed my attention. And I kept asking my dad over and over and over and bugging him about it. And then one day he said, it's library day at school tomorrow, isn't it? And I'm like, yep, you should go ask your librarian at school and see if they got any books and read up on it. So I do what the one time I actually listened to my father, and I brought home a stack of books like that, and I just read them over and over and over and over. And then then we ended up getting, back, I used to live on an acreage in the country, and back then we only had about 4 or 5 channels, and then all of a sudden we got Star Choice satellite TV, and then I got all these documentaries, and the documentary that really finally put the final hook in was Sasquatch Odyssey.
Hmm.
That just was like, wow, I want to be like them. So to me, to this day, I say that's one of the best documentaries on Sasquatch. So what it's about is these 4 gentlemen who I call the original 4. They were the original Sasquatch Bigfoot researchers.
Okay.
2 based out of Canada, 2 based out of the United States. One was one that I kind of look up to. Unfortunately, I never got to meet him. I never got to meet any of these original 4 guys, but I talked to 2 out of the 4. And the one I was mostly interested in was, his name was Rene de Hinden, and he was Swiss German. And for the people that are really into Sasquatch that may be listening, probably know who that name is. And he says exactly what he thinks. And basically, he just YouTube Rene de Hinden, and oh God, it is great material for hours to watch. This guy lived and breathed Sasquatch. He lived in British Columbia and searched pretty much his entire adult life for it. He came to Canada from Switzerland, lived on a dairy farm outside Calgary. He basically, it was almost like me. Him and a dairy farmer were having dinner one day, and he heard on the CBC radio news that they announced an expedition to go to the Himalayas and look for the abominable snowman, the Yeti. And the farmer says, "Oh, you don't." Rene said, "Boy, that'd be something to go on a search like this." And
Yeah.
the farmer said, "You don't have to go over there. They already got hairy buggers like that in British Columbia." And in his exact words. So same kind of thing with DeHind and me, hear it from certain people and just caught our attention, and that's been our lives ever since. The
Wow.
other gentleman, the other Canadian, was John Green, based out of Harrison Hot Springs, British Columbia. The third gentleman was Peter Byrne, who I've personally interviewed, never met, but I have interviewed him, and he just passed away last summer. And he was the last of the original 4. And I believe he passed away in 94 years old or something like that.
Wow.
And then Grover Krantz, Dr. Grover Krantz, professor of anthropology at Washington State University, he was one of the first scientists to come out and say, these things are out there. These are real. And, it's unfortunate for him. He really suffered a lot of academic pushback, and a lot of, he lost a lot of pay raises and promotions because of his position on his outright pretty much belief in Sasquatch. And this was
Yeah.
the early 1960s when he got into it. And of course, back then, and it was, and unfortunately, I never got to meet him or talk to him. I think he passed away in the early 2000s when I was still kind of young. But I have talked to John Green. I have interviewed Peter Byrne, and I think that was the highlight of my research career so far, was being able to interview him by the phone. I think I talked to him for just a little over 20 minutes, because
Wow.
he lived down in Oregon.
Okay.
So, but he did invite me to his place to come down, but at the time COVID was a thing, and the borders were closed and this and that, so I couldn't get down there, unfortunately. And by the time it was all over, COVID wise, he passed away. So that was too bad.
When you're talking to these guys, like you're doing research on your own too, like
Yep.
what percentage of like your time is spent researching Sasquatch?
Well, as much as I can.
Yeah.
It is harder being in Alberta with the weather and that kind of thing. My partner and I got out more than we did last year. Last year we didn't get out much at all, just due to other circumstances, which was too bad. But
What does getting out look like to you guys though? Like what does that mean?
basically, we have an area we like to go to. We scout a lot. We basically walk around in the woods, look for tracks, look for signs, look
Yeah.
for basically travel down any back roads, that kind of thing, and put up our ads and flyers and posters and this and that, and just kind of basically
Yeah.
scout. We basically, I guess you could call it reconnaissance expeditions.
Is there a spot in Alberta you think would like is a good spot to go? Like a
Right. I would say the Nordegg area. That's the top
okay.
That's the top area in Alberta, I would
Beautiful
say.
country out there.
Yeah, like there's and the history too for Sasquatch dates back, years and years.
Yeah.
The biggest and most well-known Sasquatch report came out of there from when the Bighorn Dam was being built in 1969, when 5 construction workers saw one up on a ridge,
Oh,
and that
wow.
was on the front page news of the Edmonton Journal in August of 1969. My friend and I have been to the site a couple of times.
Yeah.
What we would like to do eventually is get a drone or something like that up there, because to get to this site, you have to go off the main highway, which is Highway 11, and then you go down this dirt road to the bottom of the hill where this sighting site is. But then you have to, on by foot, you have to climb this ridge, and we've tried to attempt it a couple of times, and we found it real quick. We're not in shape for
Yeah.
this. Thomas Steenberg said you might be able to get to the top of it if you park your vehicle on the side of the highway and walk through the forest that way. But the more I think about it, I don't think that is quite correct, because this ridge is not the tree line. I don't think goes all the way back to the highway, because there's a huge gap of a river before that. So I don't think that would work. You would have to climb it from the base going up. The area has changed a lot since when the sighting happened of August of 1969, obviously, with it being 2024. But I've been there, I think, 2-3 times, and I have videos of I run a YouTube channel as well, and I do some Sasquatch stuff on there.
Okay.
Not a lot, but I have video of, me and Josh at this historical sighting site, or, tromping around the bush in Alberta and this and that. And
Yeah.
the reason I don't do a lot of Sasquatch stuff on YouTube with my channel is because already it's so saturated. And let's be honest, there's a lot of garbage out there.
Does it feel like a big community then? Like there's a lot of Sasquatch hunters out there?
As Thomas Steenberg puts it, it's the inmates running the asylum.
Yeah.
It really, I kind of learned my lesson over the years of who you can work with and who you can't.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, we're all after the same thing. It is a lot of people after one thing, and we all want to find it and be the first person to find it.
Yeah.
Because you only get that once.
Yeah. So
Once,
what does proof look like to you though? Like what would finding it be? Like would a footprint be enough?
No, because
No.
there's been thousands of footprints found dating back all the way since the 40s, and that hasn't been enough. We all know as researchers it's going to be a dead body.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. Now, I will
Yeah.
say on record, I do not want to be the one that shoots one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I not like, I know that a body needs to be the proof.
That's the evidence. Yeah.
It's unfortunate it has to go that, because look at the Patterson film. That's not good enough. Look at the thousands and thousands of plaster cast tracks. That's not good enough. Look at the Skookum cast. That wasn't good enough. Look at these DNA. That wasn't enough. So unfortunately, it's going to have to be somebody bringing in a body or a piece of the body. Now, whether that's the hand, a foot, a head, the entire body, I don't know. And it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Does that seem like, because that was one thing when I was looking up when I was preparing for this interview with you, is that was a big question people are asking, is how come there hasn't been a body, like even just a Sasquatch dying from old age, like how come a body hasn't been found?
Exactly. And as I've gotten older and been doing this longer, it's like, okay, so written reports has gone back as far as the 1800s. It's 2024 now.
Mm-hmm.
You would have to have some sort of long-standing breeding population all across North America, if not the world, for these things to still be around.
Right.
And I'm starting, do they bury? My personal honest opinion, I think they bury their dead.
Okay.
I think they bury it,
because
because
that would make it tougher to find them for sure.
Because I think personally the Sasquatch, if they do exist and if they are still out there, have higher and survival intelligence than the human mind can even comprehend.
Hmm.
You would have to have some sort of huge survival brain capacity to survive these many generations.
Yeah.
You would have to, because if not, and that's the thing, people say, well, if they're killing animals or eating whatever, you'd find that, well, that if they were more predators, then you'd find more animal kills, and we really haven't.
Mm-hmm.
I think on my hand, there's only been a few accounts of people finding a dead elk or this and that, or
Yeah.
where apparently with Sasquatch, they leave everything else except the liver. They take that.
Hmm.
Apparently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, so we talked about you've been doing this for 26 years. Has your belief changed, like where you, like in the teens, we're like, okay, it's for sure. And then you got, like now it kind of feels like you've said it a few times, if they exist. And do you feel like you're losing belief, or?
I wouldn't say I'm losing belief. My buddy and I have put these ads out all over the province. We have them up in northern Alberta. We got them in southern Alberta. We got them in western Alberta. There's not a lot of reports out of the east because, there are some reports in Saskatchewan, but I touch and go with those. And it's last year and the year before, we got quite a few calls, and we got some good stories and reports and stuff. This year, bucko.
Hmm.
And that concerns me.
Yeah.
Because it's not only me that's having that, it's also my other colleagues in BC, Yukon. Like, we all keep in anything, nope. And we're all like, this is weird.
Hmm.
And here's the other thing too, and this is again going back to Thomas Steenberg. He said in a podcast recently, the next 5 years are going to be absolutely critical for Sasquatch research, and here's why. In Washington State, and I forget exactly where, I think it's Interstate 5 or I-5 or something like that. That goes through some of the national parks in Washington State.
Yeah.
Are putting up these, like in Banff, you see those wildlife passes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So in Banff, they do have cameras in there, and they have caught everything you can imagine: bear, moose, elk, fox, grizzly, and apparently to Thomas, some very interesting, weird looking people, but no Sasquatch.
No Sasquatch.
Here's the problem, though: the difference between the ones in the States and the ones in Banff. The ones in Banff do not operate 24/7, 365 days a year. The ones that they're apparently putting in on the I-5 in Washington State are. He says if no Sasquatch is caught on those cameras, then even he might have to change his thinking a little bit.
Wow.
And ever since I heard that, I'm like, whoa, for Thomas to say that, that's pretty big.
Yeah.
And you know what? And I hate to say it, he's 100% right.
Yeah, because that is one thing that I know I brought this up with some coworkers too, that I was going to be chatting with you. And they kind of mentioned the same thing, is like, just with the trail cams out there now, like there's so many trail cams, like even, around hunting in northern Alberta here, there's trail cams everywhere you're going.
Right.
It seems like, at this point in the next few years, there's going to be cameras down every trail. So something should be popping up.
Exactly. And I mean, there's been a few images that apparently have been Sasquatch that have been caught with trail cameras and this and that.
Yeah.
Some I go, no, okay, that's possible. Others go, no. And also, in my opinion, the number one thing that I think is going to really be a detriment to Sasquatch research going forward, AI. AI is going to absolutely be an absolute, pardon my language, bitch.
Do you think people are going to use AI?
It's already happening. It's already happening.
Yeah.
Like you see on Facebook, you see this and that, and me and my buddy are going, oh my God, this is not good. This is not good at all. Because now you have this technology that can create something that's not really there.
Right.
And some of it looks pretty good.
Oh yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's hard to tell the difference between real life and AI now.
The real problem. So, and that's the thing, have you ever seen the 1967 Patterson film shot in Bluff Creek?
Yeah.
California?
Yeah.
That to me is still the top evidence for Sasquatch.
Right.
In my mind, there's no way that that's a hoax. And I know there's been people that have come out and said, I was in the suit, I was this, I was that. I've talked to other people in the Sasquatch research world. One guy told me the guy couldn't even find the site. One guy told me that he couldn't even, he was 5 or 8 miles off the site, the film site,
Mm-hmm.
and to me, you have to remember that that was shot with film, not
Right.
digital. This was actual 16 millimeter Kodak film.
Mm-hmm.
People don't shoot with that anymore unless they're like camera hobby enthusiasts
Right.
like
Yeah.
I am.
Everything's digital now.
Exactly, which makes it a little easier to mess with.
Mm-hmm.
You can't mess with film. What is on that film is what you get.
Yeah.
And what you see in that film, in my personal opinion, that is a real female Sasquatch.
Yeah.
And here's the other way I kind of been spinning it lately now. Let's say the Sasquatch has died out and we never discovered it.
Mm-hmm.
It would be like that film of the Australian thylacine, where, yeah, they were all extinct, but here is some actual footage of one when they did exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm now worried that that is the exact scenario we're in with the Patterson film and Sasquatch at this point.
The population is now extinct, and that's what. Yeah.
Like, or very, very close to it. Now, Dr. Grover Krantz always, he had his numbers and he thought they were 2,000 or something like that in Pacific Northwest and in Canada. And
Yeah.
that was in the mid 1980s, early 90s. He said that. Now we're like, 40 years later,
Mm-hmm.
2024. In my personal opinion, just for Alberta alone, I bet you there is 10 or less.
Wow. So I was doing a little research on Reddit. I know Reddit is, that's a whole nother birdcage there, but
You know what? That could be more reliable than what some other people use.
I like using it to research stuff for sure, because it feels like you get a little more honest opinions and maybe some stuff that's a little outside the box. One thing that popped up that I wasn't aware of was giving Sasquatch the like paranormal attributes, like
No,
you're not buying into that?
no.
Because there's a whole scene about that too.
That's what I completely stay away from.
Yeah. I was
In
wondering.
my personal opinion, to me, and I know everybody else has their own opinion, that's all fine and dandy. Everybody's entitled to that. But me personally,
Mhm.
if the Sasquatch does still exist, it to me is a flesh and blood creature.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with UFOs. It's got nothing to do with aliens. It's got nothing to do with portals or this or that and turning blue and orbs and all that crap. Like, it's just, no. But I could totally be wrong.
It's true. Yeah.
I could totally be wrong. And someone proves it and they go, oh, it's got some weird DNA that's never been on Earth or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I would go, okay, I was wrong, but hey, at least we found one.
Yeah.
Cool.
What's been the most legitimate like tip you've received from like through the emails or like from posting flyers?
Okay.
Have you gotten anything like real legitimate? You're like, we got to go check this out.
A lot of, so I get the same problem as what other researchers get. And that problem is that these reports are not brand new. They're either from 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 25 years ago, or 40 plus years ago.
Oh yeah, they see your poster and like, oh, I got to tell you the story that happened when I was 18.
Yeah, and some eyewitnesses don't tell and that anybody at all. And I think that's another great researcher that I grew up idolizing was Dr. John Bindernagel from British Columbia. And he used to really tell me it was like pulling teeth from just to get people to talk.
Yeah.
Where he'd be like, trust me, I take this serious. I'm a doctor. I'm not a lunatic, I don't think you're crazy, but that's what you have to tell people sometimes.
Yeah.
To me, the coolest one. So I did a podcast 3 years ago now, based out of the United Kingdom. And somebody was listening to it that was a relative of the 1969 Bighorn Dam sighting.
Okay. Yeah.
But here's the kicker. They had their incident in 1962, which was a few years before the main one. And so it was, and I have this recorded interview, like I have it all recorded. And I was just amazed. So to put it, long story short, they were building the road that goes down into the where the Bighorn Dam is and where that famous sighting site is. And basically it was, these guys would hear screams and they would find tracks and they would find some of their equipment messed with. And then they'd have their, those big, I don't know if you've ever seen them. You probably, I don't know if these big gas and oil tanker containers thrown around. And I said, that's very interesting because there's a report exactly like that comes out of Northern California in the late 1950s. It's almost on par with this. Very same behavior.
Yeah.
And so that has been honestly my coolest report I ever got. To have someone related to someone that was in that area. And unfortunately, I couldn't interview the main person they were talking about because he passed away, which was too bad. So I talked to I have a couple, colleagues as well in this, Thomas Steenberg and Daniel Perez, and I told them about it and they were just like, right on. Like, here we have another, historical thing happening. Let's see, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68. So it's 7 years prior to this one that everyone seems to know about in Alberta. And so, yeah, that was really cool. That was probably, but to be honest, in the last 2 years of I haven't gotten anything. And that's what's been so frustrating.
Yeah.
Because it's like, putting out ads in the Calgary and Edmonton Sun aren't cheap.
Yeah.
I'm paying money to, don't think I make, as much as I would love to, do this for a living and make money, there's really no money in this.
Yeah. Any idea what your investment is, like money wise, throughout your life? Or
by thousands.
Yeah.
If you count the gas money, the cameras, the books on my shelf, a whole shelf of books and DVDs and documentaries and this and that.
You mentioned Sasquatch Odyssey as the top movie. Do you have a recommended book? Like, if someone's passionate about this, do you have one that you direct them to?
Yeah. John Green, The Apes Amoung Us. That is the Bible.
The Apes Amoung Us. Okay.
Yeah. Sasquatch, The Apes Amoung Us. That's an older book, but it is to pretty much everyone knows that's the Sasquatch Research Bible. Anything written by Thomas Steenberg is top notch.
Yeah.
Anything written by Lyle Blackburn is top notch. Anything written by Dr. Grover Krantz, top notch. Peter Byrne, top notch. A lot of it is the older stuff. Some of the newer stuff now is
Okay.
But it's because a lot of them wallop it in with the paranormal.
Right.
That's the problem.
What?
People saying, oh, it's orbs or this and that,
Yeah.
So, but that I would say those are the best books. Those would be the top ones.
What's your plans for the future? Like, what's your goals with this now? Like, do you have a spot you want to go to check out? Like, I got to imagine, like, when you're looking for something like this, you got to go somewhere where there's, the population is super limited. So you're looking to like Alaska, or, is there a spot you want to go and check out?
Northern California. I'd like to go down to Bluff Creek, where the Patterson film was shot, all down in there.
Yeah.
Basically the entire Pacific Northwest, Washington State, Northern California, Oregon, more into BC. I'm not really big on Alaska. I mean, I'd love to go there, but I kind of have other areas I'd like to check out first.
Okay. Yeah.
The Yukon is another one. I'm in touch with another researcher up there named Red Grosinger, who I've just been reading his books. And because I always was thought, well, if there's Sasquatch in British Columbia, surely they got to be up north in the Yukon. And there have been some stuff up there. But again, same thing. When I asked him, hey, how are the reports going recently? Have you gotten anything in the back? And he, nope. And then that's when I was like,
Hmm.
if a guy in Yukon isn't getting anything, a guy in BC is not getting much of anything, a guy in Northern California or a guy in California isn't getting anything, and I'm here in Alberta and gotten diddly poo. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Some alarm bells start going off.
Something's going on there. When
Yeah.
you mentioned that your dad had brought this up when you were like 7 years old. Curious what your parents thought, like when you're growing up and you're like passionate about this. Were they on board with it, or they're kind of like, all right, Cameron, like
My
what's going
my
on?
my dad was all for it, but I think my mom was trying to tell my dad, don't tell him that. I'm sure my parents probably, and some of my family members probably think, oh, this guy's nuts.
Yeah.
But you know what? I don't care.
Has it affected your life, like your job at all or anything like that? Your passion for this, or?
So when I was younger, I used to not really talk about it because I'd
Mhm.
get bullied. And then as you get older, you try and get into dating, and then you start talking about that. Then you have the sex life of a monk.
Yeah.
And so that's, but as I've gotten older, I'm like, you know what? Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? So I talk about it more. I don't hide it anymore.
Yeah. Has it affected your life then?
It used to. It
Yeah.
used to. Job wise, no. I'll put it this way. I used to read a Sasquatch book at work, and lately I've kind of stopped
Mm-hmm.
because I still was getting the snickering or whatever. But it's like, you know what? Eh.
Yeah. I haven't
So
watched because there's some TV shows now too about like Sasquatch hunters and stuff. Are you following along? Are you buying into that too, or is that I haven't watched it. I'm not sure what the
when I was growing up, the documentaries were much better.
yeah.
There have been some good ones, but I would say the best ones nowadays are Small Town Monsters. They're a YouTube channel,
Okay.
and they do a lot of good work. There is another one. Oh, let me just take a look, because they did actually one of the better documentaries that I have seen in years. So I give them credit for that. That was until they made one about the paranormal stuff, and I went, and they had to go there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, you guys made a good one. You just couldn't damn well leave it alone.
Yeah.
I think it was called, oh geez, I'm sorry. I'll get it here. I got
Yeah.
on my YouTube account. I got so much Sasquatch stuff.
I believe it.
Um,
You got the algorithm down for Sasquatch, I'm sure.
Pretty much A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. That's the newest one.
A flash of beauty. Okay.
And so the first documentary they did, fantastic. Probably Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. That one that came out 7 months ago, fantastic. I thought that one was really good.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh, good, we're back on track. Here we go. Well, then 2 months later, they release A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot. And I'm going, oh, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
So, of course, you have to watch it, so that you have to watch both sides of the story.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's interesting. It is definitely, and there's some things that, make you go, interesting, but that, for example, there's have you ever heard of the Sierra Sounds, the recordings of the Sierra Sounds from the 1970s?
No.
So those are, again, probably one of the, for as far as evidence goes for Sasquatch existence, that's probably also in the top 5. So there were some gentlemen named Ron Moorhead, Al Berry, and I forget the other guys, were invited up to this hunting camp because they had Sasquatch activity going on that scared them like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
This was in the Sierra Nevada mountains, early 70s. And this gentleman named Al Berry and Ron Moorhead. Al Berry, I think, was a journalist reporter out of San Francisco. And if Daniel Perez is watching this or listening to this, I'm sure he'll correct me if I'm wrong. So Tom, I'm usually pretty good with my facts, but 26 years of
Yeah.
to keep everything and tracking everything, you tend to forget. Anyway, so they made these recordings, they brought them out, and anybody can YouTube them. Just YouTube Sasquatch sounds, Sierra. Just even if you just YouTube Ron Moorhead Sasquatch sounds, that'll tend to pop them up. And they're very interesting. Some people have said, "Oh, these are fake. It's samurai chatter." That's the name they call it in the Sasquatch world now, is the samurai chatter sound.
Samurai chatter. Okay.
That's what they compare it to, which
Mm-hmm.
I think is, I don't think it sounds anything like samurai chatter. So those sound, and then so Ron Moorhead, he was kind of the head of, I think Al Berry passed away, and then Ron Moorhead was kind of the main guy with these associated with these sounds. And when I was growing up, he was all gung-ho about it being a real live animal and this and that. Now all of a sudden he's got this quantum physics theory and that they see these blue orbs and this and that, and he thinks they were paranoid, and I'm going, oh, lost another one.
Yeah.
So, and it's just like, oh, and I was gonna read one of his books. I mean, but I'm like, I can't. I just can't. So it's just, so those sounds, and I've been on shows, other podcasts, legit arguing with people about them.
Mm-hmm. Is it the sounds are like screams in the back, or like?
No, it's a language.
Hmm.
So I believe there was a gentleman, and I think it's on that Flash of Beauty documentary. You can go to their YouTube channel, and they got interviews with all these guys that were part of the documentaries as like bonus features.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to see if I can get the name here. Because I don't know if I think his name was, yes, Scott Nelson, who was a logistic. Oh yeah. And then before that, there's the Ron Moorhead interview, which is about 48 minutes long. But yeah, Scott Nelson, he's the one that originally studied them, I believe. And he's like, this isn't just sounds. This is a language. This is a language here.
Yeah.
Because he was in the Navy or something like that, who could interpret like what the Russians were saying and this and that underwater and this and that, something like that. So he's like, no, this isn't gibberish. This is a language. And actually, there's a documentary coming out, I think next year, about the Sierra Sounds with Ron Moorhead and all the camp crew that are still alive. I forget what it's called, but I'm like, ooh, this is going to be really interesting, because now we're going to hear everybody's story.
Yeah.
Not just, it's going to be called Voices in the Wilderness. And it's going to be coming out in 2025. Wow. And if you go to the A Flash of Beauty Bigfoot Revealed YouTube page, you can find the trailer on that. And I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be good.
I'm on board.
But I'm trying not to get too excited, because who knows, by the end of it, they'll all start saying it's something with orbs and paranormal.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what all the other camp members there say.
Yeah.
Growing up, I really only heard Ron Moorhead's side of the story and a little bit of Al Berry's side of the story. And I think there's another good YouTube channel that I highly recommend. It's called the Sasquatch Archives, run by Todd Prescott. He's got all the old documentaries uploaded on there. And I think one of them has Al Berry on it. And I think it's the In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy. I think that one is the one he's in. And because wasn't a lot of, that I know of, interviews with Al Berry, because he was the one that recorded those sounds originally.
Yeah. What was he recording it on? He had like some just recording.
And and you see, that's the trick right there, right? Because in the early 70s, it was apparently reel-to-reel tapes.
Okay.
But the equipment for that, and I wasn't around in the 70s, but I do know what they are. Those were not light equipment to drag up into the Sierra Mountains by horseback, because this camp was secluded apparently.
Yeah.
And you were only allowed up there by invite. And it was a few hours of a pack horse ride to get up there, according to Ron Moorhead. So how did they get that up there? And then I've heard rumors that Ron Moorhead ran studios back in the day, music studios. I could be wrong on that, but that's something I've heard. So you go, okay. But I think I give them the benefit of the doubt and say they legit recorded them there, but you don't know. I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't born at that time. But but I recommend anybody looking up the Sierra Sounds and
I'm gonna check that out and see what it's
yeah,
about.
it's when I first heard him, it gave me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah. They're speaking of heebie-jeebies, we have a podcast question every week. And the podcast question this week is, what's the spookiest thing that's happened while you've been out camping? I'm just going to go through a few responses. We got a ton of responses in, some pretty good ones. This one came from Stephanie. She said, we went out camping 20 plus years ago. We were close to an old logging road. At around 1 a.m., we were at the fire, and a squeaky, rusty truck drove by super slow with its lights off, and it was almost identical to Jeepers Creepers movie truck. He stopped, shut off the truck 50 yards from our camp. Thought for sure she was going to die that night. Yeah, that would be scary to see out in the middle of nowhere. David said 16-foot tree, 16-inch diameter tree fell on my tent while kids were sleeping. So 30 minutes after jumping in the vehicle during a storm. So they just got out of their tent and a big tree fell right on them. That'd be a little spooky too. Lots of bear stories. Ryan said grizzly and her cubs about 100 feet away from the campsite. There was one. I'll see if I can find it. Oh, Kayla wrote, somebody came into our horse camp, tried stealing our horses. UFO lights down in Dinosaur Provincial Park. No idea what they were, but they're purple, kind of hovering around the hoodoos. Every once in a while, they'd multiply and disappear. Some spooky things out there. A few people wrote in. They were trying a few different mushroom trips and experienced a few scary things.
I bet.
Yeah. Adam said a random person tried to get into our trailer at Abraham Lake. When I got out of bed to take a look, it was some dude and he was walking away. That's the thing. When you're in the middle of nowhere and then someone's banging at
And
your
you know what?
door.
Abraham Lake is kind of a hotspot that I go to for Sasquatch research because that's not far from Nordegg, and that's okay. I guess I won't be going camping there.
There's been a few comments on here too about people saying that they heard screaming or like really loud. See if I can bring this one up because this was one that I'm like, oh, this kind of ties into our chat tonight. But oh yeah, this one here. Screams I've never heard that I've never heard again in my life. The only thing I could think of was a cougar with a kill, but I don't know. Never want to hear that sound again. And that was from Diane. And then someone had commented on that saying that's supposed to be Bigfoot. They have screams like that. Have you heard? Is that something?
Oh yeah, I've gotten reports of that. Yeah, I've got, and most of them were in the Nordegg area, Abraham Lake area,
yeah,
Kootenai Plains area, which is a little farther down from Abraham Lake.
Do you feel like when you're out there in the middle of nowhere looking for Sasquatch, do you feel like, by the way, thanks everyone that sent these messages. It's great to have those, and I'll you can find some on Reddit and through our Facebook and Instagram pages there too. But so Cameron, when you're out there, do you feel nervous? Are you scared? Are you full of adrenaline? Like, what's your feeling when you're out searching
Not really.
for Sasquatch?
I no, because I'm like, who knows? I'm hoping, every day I get a chance, whenever I get out there,
yeah,
and I get a chance to go, I'm like, well, maybe this is the day I'll find them. Maybe this is the day something. So I'm mostly jacked up. Like,
yeah,
the night before I go to the mountains, I can't sleep. I'm too excited.
What are you bringing with you?
So that's the thing. A lot of these researchers nowadays, the newer ones, use all these high-tech equipment.
Yeah.
I don't. Number one, can't afford it. Number two, to me, the most successful Sasquatch researcher was Roger Patterson, and he used one camera and a pack horse. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have a pack horse, and I don't go in on horseback. But I have my backpack, obviously, with bear spray just in case. I have my notebook. I have my plaster Paris in case we had to make tracks. Obviously, a camera, my phone, so I can take video, God forbid, if something happens.
Yeah.
No, I'm not packing a lot of high-tech stuff at all.
I had a friend. He said he was out Sasquatch. This was probably, it would have been 20 years ago now or so. maybe 10 years. But he was saying that they had like some kind of recording that they would play in their truck, and that was supposed to be. Have you heard something like
Oh,
that?
yeah, the call blasting. Yeah.
That work? Hey,
Never used it because
no.
nobody has ever had results with it.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think the best thing for if you're out in the woods, either if you're by yourself or camping with family, play some music. Let them be curious. That's what I hear. Let them know that you're there, but don't do it in such an aggressive manner where you'd scare them all off. I've heard stories reading in books or whatever, people are just at their campfire playing music or whatever, and they come up investigate. They probably come up investigate people's camps and people don't even notice.
Yeah.
I had an incident, for example, one time, this was back when all three of us were tromping around through the woods, my team and I, and we legit walked by a deer and we didn't see it until we turned around. It was laying right under a tree. And my one teammate, she was like, "Oh, look, a deer." And me and Josh, we turned around, we're like, "Oh, there's a deer." We walked right by it, didn't even notice. How many times do you think we could have done that with Sasquatch and we didn't even notice?
Yeah. Well, that's like the cougars and stuff too. I mean, there'd be one right above you in a tree. You'll have no idea. They're just
no thanks. You're better off French kissing a cobra than you are dealing with a cougar. I'm sorry. The cougars scare me more than bears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any like cool pieces of Sasquatch like memorabilia?
Oh God, yeah.
What's your coolest piece?
As far as memorabilia, a lot of it's all books, but let me grab some here. Well, with this being an audio podcast, you can't really see it, but I'll show you. Anyway.
Yeah, I want to take a look at this and see what we're working with.
So, I'll have to send you a video or picture of all my what seems like 8-foot tall bookshelf. These are the rarest Sasquatch books you can find.
The Sasquatch File.
This is all by John Green. These
Okay.
were books that he sold in the late 1960s, early 70s.
Yeah.
And I originally found them on a Facebook marketplace post from a guy down in Airdrie.
Yeah.
I couldn't get down there at the time or whatever, but my wonderful girlfriend, soon to be wife, went down there with her friend and got them for me for Christmas.
Wow, cool.
And they are they're readable. They are in mint condition. They're in a very hard kind of plastic cover.
Okay.
To protect them.
Yeah.
This one here. This one cost $4 back in 1973.
Wow.
This one here, this one costs $3 back in, I think this was Year of the Sasquatch, 1969.
Year of the Sasquatch.
Yeah. And then this one here, there is one more of this set and I can't find it. It's harder. On the Track of Sasquatch. And this is all these by John Green.
Yeah, they look in good condition too.
Yeah, like I couldn't believe it. I just about had a heart attack when I saw them. And I was like, oh my God, I got to get these books. I got to get these books. And I couldn't get down there because I was working that weekend or whatever. And God bless my girlfriend and wife to be. She went down there with her friend and I opened these up Christmas Day. And I was just like, oh! So I was like, so I would say this is probably one of my favorites.
Is there a market for Sasquatch related things? Like are people flipping it? And
Oh yeah. I don't give my stuff away or flip it. This stuff's going to my grave.
Yeah.
The other one I have, and I bought from the same gentleman because I went down there and got more stuff. This one here is probably the most rarest Sasquatch book of all, I was told.
Looks like a thick yellow Sasquatch book. Yeah.
It's the Sasquatch and Other Unknown Hominids, edited by Vladimir Markotic, who was Thomas Steenberg's pretty much I would say coach into Sasquatch research. Vladimir Markotic was a university, I think he was a physical anthropologist. I'm not 100% sure, but he was based at a University of Calgary. And that's who Thomas Steenberg contacted when he was getting into Sasquatch research. And Grover Krantz was the associated editor. What these were a bunch of papers that got rejected by these mainstream scientists And they're all like, it's all about Sasquatch and all these scientists' thoughts on Sasquatch. And this book came out, Western Publishers, 1984, but it came out, I think it came out earlier than that. And the Western Publishers was based out of Calgary, Alberta.
Yeah.
And they did Thomas Steenberg's first few books too, but it's got everybody from Lauren Coleman to Grover Krantz, Dmitry Bainov from Russia, John Green, Grover Krantz again, Lauren Coleman, like all these guys, they got the Patterson Gimlin film in there. Vladimir Markotik's got stuff. So
legends in the Sasquatch community.
Right. So apparently this is a very rare book, and on Amazon, you can't even find it anymore. I've seen it online in the hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars. I paid $60 for it.
Yeah. How come this guy was selling his Sasquatch stuff?
He just wanted to shorten his collection.
Yeah.
Wow. And so this on the back of this book, fair's fair trade, 60, there's a $60 price tag on this. So he just charged me that.
Yeah.
Really, that he could have charged thousands of dollars for it.
Wow.
And here's another funny story. So I contacted this gentleman and said, hey, I'd love to, come down and buy some of your stuff. I'm a Sasquatch researcher. I've been looking for these books forever.
Yeah.
He says, well, I got another guy interested. He might be coming down to grab this stuff, but if there's anything left, I'll let you know. And I thought, there ain't gonna be any. And I found out who this other gentleman was. It was Rene Dehinden's son. So I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because Rene Dehinden had a couple of sons, and that's honestly the sad thing too with a lot of these original researchers, their material's gone and lost.
Yeah.
Rene Dehinden's stuff, I hear his son has it, and he's not letting anybody have it or take a look at it. That was told to me, I think, by Thomas Steenberg. I heard from someone, now this, I don't know how reliable this source is, because this is from somebody, this person told me that Peter Burns stuff is sitting in a basement in Calgary in some lawyer's basement. And I'm going, see, and that's the problem, because if you were to have all this old stuff available, we might be able to use this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about Todd Prescott and his YouTube channel. He's got all these old documentaries and news segments and old Sasquatch conference tapes and stuff like that. So there used to be a conference every year in Harrison Hot Springs, which is the hot spot for Sasquatch in Canada, because that's where the name Sasquatch came from, was from that area.
Okay. Yeah.
And they're a hoot to watch, because you basically got all these original researchers just arguing with each other. It's like children. It's hilarious. Like, and it's just, and Dehinden is just the best, because, and then there's like Dr. Jeff Meldrum from Idaho State University when he was a rookie, and Dehinden's just going after him like crazy. And then there's one on there where, so Dr. Grover Krantz and Rene Dehinden did not like each other at all for whatever reason. And I kid you not, Dehinden did an hour and a half presentation of just raking him over the coals. It is hilarious. I really recommend it for any big Sasquatch enthusiasts that may be listening to this. Go on Todd Prescott's YouTube channel, Sasquatch Archives, and it is, he hasn't posted anything in a while, and I hope he's okay. I know he's got a lot of stuff. I think he's based out of Toronto, and he lives in an apartment, and he's got one room just stacked full of Sasquatch stuff.
Yeah.
But oh man, that watching, whenever I'm having a bad day or feel depressed, I just watch Rene Dehinden and it gives me a laugh.
Yeah. Sorry, Cam, I want to put your phone number out here again, because I feel like if someone's listening to this podcast right now and you've seen Sasquatch, or like we're recording this up in the Northern Rockies, and a lot of our listeners up in this area, so I mean it's pretty secluded up here too. Who knows? 780-868-8182. Cameron, the Alberta Sasquatch team, What does the next couple of years for you look like? What's your plans for moving forward now? You still searching? Still
Oh yeah, I mean there is the thing of real life things happening,
yeah, you're getting
unfortunately.
married.
And there's a job I need to make money so I can come
Yeah.
out and do this stuff.
Yeah.
The hard time is the winter because we really don't know what they do. We don't know where they go. I personally think they migrate.
Migrate.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think they migrate south,
Hmm.
especially the ones that are in Alberta.
Is that a common philosophy about
I've
that?
heard one other guy talk about it, but that's about it.
Yeah.
But I think he was mostly talking about them going to lower elevations just in Alberta, where I'm
Okay.
thinking, no, I think they go down into the States, into warmer climates of BC,
Yeah.
down in there. The winter, it's hard for us to go out in the winter because you got to deal with bad roads in winter,
Yeah.
and not a lot of people are as active in the winter. Like you have your skiers, you have your snowmobilers, but I haven't gotten a lot of winter reports. A lot of my reports it's like early spring, fall, and summer is most of my personal reports that I've gotten. I've never gotten a winter report
Hmm.
ever personally given to
Yeah.
me. It would be great if I did, because then I could figure out, maybe where they are during the winter, or kind of get some sort of idea where they might be.
Yeah.
Next 2 years, it's hard to say. I mean, I can't even, I don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow, but
What is it?
I'm just going to keep going. There is a little piece of me now that's I'm not going to say giving it up,
Mm-hmm.
but the fact that I haven't gotten any reports. I put online, I have 2 articles running in the Calgary Sun and Edmonton Sun,
Yeah.
where it's my ad poster that you saw. And all I get emails are spam. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going, thank God I didn't pay money for this crap.
It's
So
discouraging when
it's
you're
been a little discouraging over the last couple of years.
yeah. There would like I just picture it now. Like there's someone finds a Sasquatch body or something. Like the vindication you would feel. Like what let's say Sasquatch, someone finds a body in the next year. There's a video, a body found. What does your life turn into then? You say I've been. You tell everyone I told you so.
Not really, because then that would not make me look good.
Yeah.
Um, I'm doing this because I want to know.
Yeah.
I listened to Thomas Steenberg's advice. He gave up trying to prove it to other people years ago.
Yeah.
And I've pretty much done the same thing.
Yeah.
Because it's a waste of time and energy.
Yeah. You're not going to change someone's mind.
The best advice I gotten was, when you're out doing Sasquatch research, so you don't get disappointed if you don't find anything or see anything, be doing something else, fishing,
Mm-hmm.
hiking. That's the great thing about this. Like when I'm out there looking around or whatever, I'm doing photography.
Yeah.
I'm doing, my own YouTube channel stuff.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I try not to be, because if you go out there, and I've done it time and time again, go out there and it's like, okay, Sasquatch, let's go, Sasquatch. And
Yeah.
then you come home and you're like, son of a, and nothing.
Yeah.
You just bang your head against this. I can't, as Renee to Hinden, I'm not going to pound my head on this cement wall anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's just, it's just, so I go out there with it on my mind, because
Yeah.
obviously that's, of course, my buddy and I, when we're traveling the forestry trunk road or these back roads that we go on, we'd love to turn a sharp corner in the dirt road and there's one standing right there.
Yeah.
We'd love that. But the chances of that are happening are very low.
Right.
But if it happens, fantastic. I just hope I have my camera out fast enough to get a good solid picture of it, even though I know that's not going to prove it, at least, because that's the problem that Thomas Steenberg said. It's great when people contact us or whatever and say, hey, we saw one here. But it goes, but it was 5 years ago or 10, then, but they don't have a picture of it. It's just another person saying they saw a Sasquatch, which is
Right.
great. And it adds to the count of reports, but it's like, we need more now.
Yeah.
So the
I think
next 2
that's
years, I honestly couldn't tell you. Who knows? I might just say piss on it. I give up and I move to Kelowna and go look for Ogopogo.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a solid point. I 100% agree with you where it's almost an excuse to get out into the bush and go
It
camping.
is.
And, it's like, hey, what are you doing this week? And I'm going Sasquatch hunting. It's like, well, that's awesome. That's, you go have some fun
Yeah.
in the bush and maybe you see Sasquatch, maybe you don't. And, you can enjoy yourself and take in nature. And
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
Cameron, I really want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I know it's like, it's probably I'm assuming like have you said you mentioned you've done a few podcasts and stuff. Have you been like bombarded before with people like making fun of it, like not buying into it, not believing, and just like
I don't really care about that anymore. I'm doing it because I enjoy it. It's a
yeah,
great mystery. The people you meet is just as interesting as the creature itself.
yeah. Well, your passion
Um,
comes through and you're like
yeah.
clearly super
Honestly, this
knowledgeable
is the
about
most
it. So
passionate thing I've been about. This has been the most passionate thing I've been my whole life.
yeah,
Think about it. I was a 7-year-old kid. I'm now 34.
yeah,
I don't
still
know.
going.
Some people think I've probably the youngest researcher that started at 7,
Yeah,
you know.
it's
Um,
amazing.
like it's, I look at, and I'm very proud of what I've done. How many people could say they've interviewed Peter Byrne? How many people could say they've interviewed, Dr. Jeff Meldrum from Idaho State? Like, these are all done by like phone and,
Yeah,
me recording them and, and I've met some really great people like, you know, when I met Thomas Steenberg for the first time in person on my 32nd birthday. That's what I did on my 32nd birthday. I was in Harrison Hot Springs and he took me around all the historical stuff around there.
yeah,
And that was the best time I've ever had in my life. We didn't see anything, unfortunately, but we know that's the way it goes. And but just to hang around him and soak up all that information and all of that knowledge
yeah.
was great. And one other thing, I recommend people subscribing to the Bigfoot Times newsletter by Daniel Perez. It's I'll show you. And my work has been published in it too, from time to time. It's an actual physical newsletter.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And this guy the website is www.bigfoottimes.net. And this guy has been doing it for, I think, 30 years.
Wow.
And it's amazing. Like, it's actual physical newsletter.
Cool.
It's the last one standing.
How often does that come out?
Once a month.
Oh, cool. Wow.
For a year. And
Yeah.
I think I pay about $25 for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, $25 American or something, or $25 Canadian or whatever
Yeah.
but it's worth it. It's great. And I'm not just saying that because he's published some of my work and that it is really, it's nice to actually have a physical.
Yeah. It feels like you're a part of a community then too, it's like, oh, you're not just out here on your own. Like there's
right.
people.
Oh, I'm definitely not.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not, on my own on this. And, yeah, I recommend people to subscribe to this. He is on Facebook, Daniel Perez. His email is out there. I won't say that here in case he doesn't want. Well, I mean, he puts it in his newsletter, so he's not hiding. Yeah. He's got his phone. Yeah, it's $22.75 a year for US members, $26.75 for the rest of the world.
Cool.
That's and I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's not. Daniel Perez is probably one of the top researchers still in the world. He's very, very historical. He's got a lot of files as well. I personally haven't met him, but we talk on the phone and we email, and when I find this and this, and
Yeah.
so we converse that way. So yeah, Bigfoot Times, I recommend getting that newsletter for
I'll
people.
pull just a link to a few of the things you talked about, some of the books and videos too. You can check them out in the show notes. Cameron's phone number, if you've spotted Sasquatch or maybe have any information, I'm sure even if someone spotted one 5 years ago, you'd still
Oh,
appreciate
heck
a
yeah.
phone call. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, heck yeah.
780-868-8182. Get a hold of Cameron there. And then if you want to do the email too, Cameron.Crawford29. So that's CameronCrawford29 at iCloud.com. Get hold of Cameron there. Cameron, thanks for taking the time and chatting with me
No
today.
problem. And people can also follow my YouTube channel. I got some Sasquatch stuff on there. It's called The Traveling Canuck.
The Traveling Canuck. Cool. I'll link that in the show
I'll
notes too.
I'll send you a link to that as well.
Perfect. Yeah, okay. I love the passion, Cameron. I mean, I hope for your sake you find it, and if you don't, I hope you just get out there and enjoy yourself, and who knows, maybe you'll stumble across it one year and it'd be super cool.
It would be great. That's probably, like Thomas Steenberg says, it's not going to be us that finds it, the guys that have been out there for all their lives or 40 plus years, or for me almost 30 years. You know what it's going to be? It's going to be some damn rookie kid working at some museum that is in the basement and finds an old tooth or something, or some part of a bone or something that the people that actually work in the museum forgot that it was there. They test it, and that starts the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think that's how it's going to get. And that would it'd be great, but man, would that tick us off.
Yeah. Okay, Cameron, again, his phone number 780-868-8182. Give Cameron a call and let him know if you've seen Sasquatch or Bigfoot. Cameron, thanks so much. If you're listening to this, drop us a review, Wilderness Wave. You can find us on Spotify, wherever you're listening. Give us a review there. And if you have a question or want to send something in for the podcast, send us an email to wildernesswave@outlook.com. Cameron, thank you so much, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Wilderness Wavelength.